Morning or whenever you guys are tuning in. My name is Miranda Mojica, and I have been what I consider a part of the Catholic Charities family for now about 6 or 6.5 years, because that's about as long as I've been a nurse. Actually, I've probably been a part of this for at least 7 or 8 years, because at the time I was going through the RN program in Lubbock, it was a 2-year program. And through the process of moving from the outskirts of Lubbock, from the Plainview area to Lubbock, Texas, just to go to school, the move required my 4 kids and I to get up and go. And so, just for convenience of being closer to the school and still having to wrangle in 4 kids as a single mom and find a way to make ends meet, that was a very trying moment. But through Catholic Charities and their assistance is how I was able to make that happen. Now, as I've told several different people, and as I've told the story several times, your testimony is always going to be your testimony. So my story never changes for those of you who may have heard it at other events or other fundraisers, but the involvement that I had in the family that I was able to acquire whenever I moved to Lubbock for school with my 4 small children and just myself with no other family or friends or resources, it was a vital turning point for me, because had I not had that assistance and that sense of family, not just the funding, but the family from Sabrina and Cynthia and all of the ladies that were helping there, I wouldn't be where I am today, which is, again, in a moment, we'll talk about that 7 years down the line. But the Catholic Charities family is definitely more than just, and the Parent Empowerment Program is more than just giving you funding through the process. It is that cheerleading team that you need at times, because if you are a single parent and you have kids at various ages, even if they're older and independent, it's a struggle to try to balance family life, work life, which you probably still have to work part-time, full-time, and then try to find a time and a way to go to school. All of those things together, you have to have a social support group. And Catholic Charities was that too. They weren't just the help of funding. So for me, my involvement for the long haul and for as many years as I get to speak to people about this it's going to be a part of my monthly or yearly routine, because I would definitely not be where I am today doing what I'm doing here in New York City if it weren't for that chance of somebody believing in me, helping me get through the financial burdens, and being that support system all the while just to get me where I am today. I never wanted to be a nurse. And actually, whenever I did my master's dissertation and I had to do my presentation defending all of my work, that was the title of my dissertation. I never wanted to be a nurse. And that's because I spent many of my years from the age of 8 to the age of 18 as a patient. And I grew up with a seizure disorder. So at 8, I started having seizures. And then 2 months shy of graduating high school, after multiple years of medications and doctor's visits and procedures and failed attempts to control the seizures, I had corrective brain surgery in Dallas, actually, of all places. So at 18, shortly after graduation, I had corrective brain surgery, and I have not had a seizure since I was 18. I was actually 43 yesterday. So I got to be in New York on my birthday and quarantine myself and watch Criminal Minds. But so I never wanted to be a nurse. And then as the years went on, in my 20s, I had my kiddos and I needed a job out of circumstance. So I went to work at a hospital as a receptionist on just a med-surg floor. And as I watched these nurses and doctors do what they do, I kind of had, as I've always said, like almost like an epiphany. And I was like, wow, maybe the reason that I went through all of that was because I can do this. I can be a different kind of nurse. I can be a nurse that says, I understand and actually understand what that means, that the hospital rooms are small and the beds are terrible and the food is even worse. And you just are frustrated because you can't seem to get better, or you're having to go through all of this pain trying to figure out how to get better. I figured this is my time to kind of give back in a way that not many people can. Not to say you have had to be a patient for a long time to get it, but we have a lot of our healthcare professionals that just say out of sympathy, I understand, or I'm sorry, or I'll get it. We'll get it together or whatever. But they don't ever understand the other side of the bed. And so that was what kind of prompted me to go to nursing school. And so I started nursing school in 2012 and graduated at the end of 2013. And that again was Catholic Charities, all of their help throughout that time, which was, again, phenomenal. It was just, it made the deal. It made everything happen. But I wanted to be an ICU nurse right out of the get-go because I did have intentions of going to CRNA school, which was a postgraduate school for a nurse anesthesia. Those are the people that basically do the same thing an anesthesiologist does, putting people to sleep, giving epidurals, doing pain management, stuff like that. That was my goal. And in order to be to go to that type of school, after you've been a nurse, you have to work in ICU. You have to have the experience with drips and really super sick patients, and as close to the OR as you can get right out of the OR. So that was my plan. But then, even though I didn't go into CRNA school because that's another 2-year schooling, and that actually you can't work at all. You have to just devote all of your time to school. I still had my kiddos at home, and I just thought this is not feasible for me to do this. And so then I started figuring out where kind of my niche was as far as what I'm good at. And I feel that I turned into a preceptor for not only nursing students coming through for their clinical settings, but for brand new baby nurses, because I had a very terrible preceptor, which I feel like made me a better preceptor as a brand new nurse, because I knew how not to treat people. I knew how to be more of a teacher and less of a dictator and stuff like that. So that's why I love giving education and different types of components of learning the clinical setting and learning how to do things smarter, not harder, that sort of thing as a nurse. So I always have been an ICU nurse, which is good, because if you can be an ICU nurse, then you can go to you can go to a med-surg floor, you can go to most other places, with the exception of specialties like labor and delivery or whatever, where that again is a different skill set entirely. But as an ICU nurse, you can go to the ER and you can work and float there. You can work in a med-surg floor. You just have to change your routine because you have more patients, or their diagnoses are a little bit different. So that was kind of the plan, and that's what led me into ICU nursing. But I definitely see myself being now more of a nursing advocate, and having my master's degree, that does open more doors for me to do that. Sabrina actually told me once upon a time that education provides the opportunity, and you can finish that sentence, to whatever opportunity to travel, opportunity to move up in whatever career you choose. It doesn't have to necessarily be healthcare or nursing. The opportunity to do more. And with opportunity comes a certain amount of freedom. And that's also something that she said education provides. It provides you a certain amount of freedom to make the decisions that you want to make, instead of letting life just happen and you have to just let it be what it is because your circumstances are grim or they're smaller. And that's why this program and everything that they do to help people get through school, especially the parents that feel like they have their back against a wall and you don't have a way to make ends meet and make sure your kids get what they need and be 15 places at once, which I still have not mastered because teleporting is not an option. But I think that the Catholic Charities family is what gives you that little bit of an edge, because you can do it without them, but doing it without them is even harder than it was initially. It's a much harder uphill battle than if you have not only a cheerleading team, but somebody that can help you connect with other resources. Say, for instance, if they can't help you with something because of a funding issue or whatever the situation is, it's not always about knowing the answer. It's about knowing who has the answer. And this group is really good about saying, we can't do this, but we know somebody that can. And sometimes it is simply about networking, and they teach you that too. So that was a win for me as well, because it's other people know people. And when you have those connections, it makes life a little bit easier. We'll just kind of fast forward. A year ago, whenever I spoke at A Night to Remember at the fundraiser, then I was just moving. I had just finished my master's degree in education administration, and I was moving from the Lubbock area to Dallas. That was to kind of revamp some preceptor programs and do something to more empower the nursing profession. And whenever all of the pandemic started last December and this January, I really had to do a lot of praying. I felt very called to go and help, but you weigh a lot of things in your mind. Like, what am I walking into when I know I still have, at this point, I only have one of my 4 children still at home with me, but I'm leaving all of that. And so just to come here and do what my profession calls and to help my colleagues, do the risks outweigh the benefits. I want to do the right thing. I want to have integrity and do what's right, but I'm leaving a family behind, and all of the things that come with going to be on the front lines was very scary. So I prayed on it some more, and I thought about, if I were in these people's shoes, especially my colleagues, and I'll explain in just a moment why I feel I came at the perfect timing, towards the middle to the end of whenever the illness was really rampant. But I decided that it was definitely better to go and to do what we say we do, especially in the nursing profession, but healthcare or first responders or criminal justice or all of those entities that are frontline workers. This is what we're called. Kind of where I wanted to segue into the current New York situation. I did come because March, if anybody's not truly aware, probably the beginning to middle of March, right at the time that spring break is occurring, is when things really started to ramp up. And that's when we were seeing so much sadness and chaos on the news. That was probably the height of it. I came at the end of April, and they had already gotten their PPE resources vamped up. They were finding ways to function a little bit better in the chaos and in the pandemic environment. So when I came in, I feel very honored, and I've told several of my colleagues at the Longshore University Medical Center where I'm working in New York, that I feel very blessed and honored that I got to come in and be an aid more to my colleagues. Yes, we do still have very, very sick patients in the ICU that are battling with COVID, that the situation is still grim. However, it's more under control. There aren't as many cases. If you have kind of kept up with the way that things are polling, New York is doing well. They are starting to move into their second phase. They've opened upstate New York, so they're getting to that point. So as far as the way that the ICUs look, it's not as full. But again, you have to realize that for the last 4 to 6, 8 weeks, you've had the healthcare professionals very, very stressed. And so when I say I'm honored to come in and be a real advocate for my colleagues, they need some time off. They need those mental health days to recharge, so that whenever all of us travelers, because there are several of us from all over the nation that have come to help, whenever we go home and back to our respective areas, they have the opportunity to come back recharged. And so that's where kind of my focus is now. Yes. Love thy neighbor is a commandment that's put into the Bible that is not for people that we love with ease. And that's what I said in my post. I said that is for people that are difficult to love, people that are different than you, people that you don't understand their culture or where they come from or what their story is. And whenever I came here from Texas and I was dropped in the middle of a totally different environment, it was a culture shock even for me.
My name is Jamie Stone, and I am a single mom. I have 3 kids. My oldest is 23, and then I have a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old. I'm a student at Covenant School of Nursing. I'm going for my RN. I love people, and that just... I didn't really think a whole lot about nursing when I was younger, but just through experiences of being in a hospital, just with kids and just different experiences, I really just saw how they cared for patients in really scary times. My son was 18 months. He was 18 months old, and he pulled a pot of boiling water on him. And so we were in the pediatric burn unit, and that was the first time that I ever thought I might want to be a nurse, but not in a burn unit. But the nurses were incredible. They were really kind. super patient, teaching us how to do wound care at home. And it was just a time that we were really scared and unsure, and they were always so comforting and just so kind and just things like that. It was a way that I could love people when they are in a really vulnerable space and just serve them with kindness and dignity. I had already started doing my prerequisites at South Plains College, and really hadn't done great research about the schedule of nursing school. And it's super intense. It's the classes are actually Monday through Thursday, from 8:30 to 4:30. And so I almost didn't pursue nursing because I had my family to support, and I just didn't see how I could work full-time and go to nursing school full-time. And then just through speaking with the, I don't know if it were the counselors, someone with Covenant School recommended that I come and speak with Catholic Family Charities, and so I talked with them and applied, and they accepted me into the PEP program. And I'm so grateful because I would not be able to pursue nursing without, number one, the financial help. I mean, that was my biggest hurdle towards going to school. So they helped me with my books and like my scrubs, things like that. But they also help with my rent. They pay a portion of my rent and then my utility bill. So the financial aspect, I mean, that's just huge. But then also just the support. Everybody is super encouraging. They really care about how I'm doing, how my kids are doing, how classes are going and things like that. And then the classes that they have been really good. Just talking to people who have been through the program and just kind of asking them questions about how they were able to schedule study time in while you're going to school full-time and working, and then you have your kids. And my kids are super active, so there are times where we have an event every night. So just asking them about it. And then they also brought in, for one of our monthly PEP meetings, they brought in some students from the tech accounting program, I believe, and went over just budgeting strategies. And I'm really good with my money anyways, very frugal, but there was this one exercise that we did where you just wrote down one thing that you spend your money on that is not a necessity, and then you write how much you spend a week, and then you did how much a month and how much it was over the year. That was pretty eye-opening. So yeah, just stories of people checking on older people. My mom is super healthy, really grateful for that, but we were all very protective of her, and just with her and her friends stopping by outside the door, just making sure that she had everything that she needed. And then we actually had someone in our class that tested positive. She was in my group with our group project that was done via Zoom. Anyways, she ended up getting sick and couldn't complete her portion. So as a group, we just pulled together and covered that for her. But Catholic Family Charities actually, at the very beginning, in March, we lost my little brother, and I come from a working class family. didn't have the funds to take care of the funeral costs, and just really didn't know what to do, and just did a lot of research, and had a few resources, but I called Brenda and Sabrina and just asked if they either knew of anything or if there was anything that Catholic Family Charities did just to help with funeral costs for my brother, and all of this with planning and the daily changes of restrictions as far as the numbers at the funeral and that sort of stuff. I just wanted to take some of that burden off of my dad, and they helped us out, and it wasn't a huge amount, but at that point it was a huge amount to us and to our family, and so we're just really grateful for that.